I want to connect on a human level and start with how are you? How are you feeling? So, just in a sentence or two, just tell me where you're from, where you're joining us from again, and just how are you? Start with you, Ariane.
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Ariane, the founder and CEO of Hatch. I am currently on Long Island with my family, holed up, where I've been for the last couple of months. And how am I? I'm doing okay today. It's really a day by day kind of thing. I think we're all feeling the ebbs and flows of what's happening right now. And today's a good day. And some days they aren't so great, but today's a good day. And I'm feeling optimistic and am excited to be here.
Wonderful. We're thrilled for you to be here. Kate, why don't you just tell us how you're feeling today?
Well, it's day 72 of being with two 6-year-olds and a 9-year-old for 18 hours a day. By Friday, I'm feeling pretty worn out. It's also the last day of school. So on one hand, I'm really excited to be done teaching to kindergartners. I'm also a little apprehensive about next week where it's summer and I don't really know what that means for us and how we're going to handle it. But I also like Fridays because they're pretty productive and there's a Saturday on the other side of a Friday. So that feels pretty good.
And Jenny.
Yeah, I'm Jenny from Goldfish Swim School, co-founder and visionary. And yeah, we're holed up in Michigan and the weather's finally turning. So that's a good thing. I have 4 young boys at home and we've also been holed up, still are at, stay-at-home order. So it's been challenging and there's been good days and bad. I like to call it my emotional roller coaster. I think we're all sort of, some days I'm like, all right, we're gonna do this. It's gonna be great. And then other days I'm like, holding up in like a bathroom crying, trying not for my kids not to see like, how can this be happening? But, honestly, every day gets a little better and I'm cautiously optimistic, I call it right now, because I think, we're at a place where we're better than we were last month, better than we were last week. And I'm seeing things starting to change and hopefully going in the right direction. So cautiously optimistic is where I'm at today.
Thank you all for your honesty. And I love asking this question every time I host an online forum or an Instagram live, because I remember in the very beginning of the pandemic, I would be on phone calls with colleagues or sources and I would ask, how are you? And everyone would be like, I'm fine, but I could hear that we're not fine. So it's just great to be honest. And as we move now from personal to business, I just also want to ask and start with, if you can give us the behind the scenes of what you as founders, business leaders experienced for your individual businesses as closures and safety precautions began to unravel during the global pandemic. Why don't we start with you, Jenny? Give us the behind the scenes of the decisions, strategic yet immediate and urgent decisions you had to make to survive.
It's kind of surreal looking back on it. I was actually on a nice vacation with my husband when everything started to crumble and it really got real. And so we decided to end our trip early and come back. And our world was pretty much turned upside down in a matter of days. We had to close all 103 of our locations, franchise locations, and we own one of those corporate locations as well. And so, the majority of our franchisees had to let most of their staff go within a couple of days. We had to make a difficult and really hard decision to let about 40% of our franchisee workforce go as well to be able to preserve cash so that we could operate and provide for our franchisees. It was all just really scary and heartbreaking, to be honest. And with all this going on, we had kids at home and I'm trying to be strong for them and not show too much anxiety because they're going through so much as well. So, honestly, it was a really stressful time, but as leaders, you can't just shut down. Like you have to, come to action. And so we've really tried our best to, come up with some strong tactics that we'll talk about later, but it was chaos, I will say, for several weeks, to be honest.
Great. And Kate, why don't you give me a behind the scenes of that shit just got real moment for you as a
Yeah. So for us, obviously we support travel. And I think that first week was a little weird. We were kind of like, what is going to happen? We were trying to kind of look into this crystal ball and like predict what was going to happen. And I think it was hard to get really like strong indicators on a macro level for better or for just from leadership in the US to know what to expect and how this was going to be handled. And then what ended up happening was the company started handling it themselves and putting in travel restrictions before we even saw restrictions on a government level. And we went from 400 orders in our system to like a dozen in a day. And that's when I think it was a Friday, and we just saw cancellation after cancellation after cancellation. And that's when it got real. Yeah.
I would panic, but thankfully it seems like all of you just had to follow a level-headed approach. Ariane, I am interested to hear about you because I know you operate both brick and mortar as well as digital. How did you balance those two universes?
Yes, I mean, I echo Jenny and Kate. It was just super chaotic to understand, like, what does the next week look like? What's the playbook? You know, we operate, you know, with a little bit of control, so we can set the team in place for what to expect. And as a leader, when you don't know what to expect yourself, it's super challenging. So we went into survival mode as well. We furloughed. We made not right away. The first few weeks, we just kind of did a lay of the land of what was happening. Obviously, fear was across the board. We had to close our stores. We were in the process of opening our third store on March 26th, which unfortunately we kind of had to drop the mic on. So it was really just prioritizing. And the first things first were our people and putting our people first, and kind of how do we communicate with them and be there for them at a time where I was also a mom, you know, I'm a mom and a wife, and trying to figure out how to be a leader and a source of strength there as well. And then how to prioritize the business and the different channels that we run between our online D2C business, our wholesale business, and then our brick and mortar. And so in that order, we prioritized people first, and just tried to kind of listen and lean on what we could do for them to make sure that everybody was safe. And then we started to make sure that we were following protocol and closing the stores. And then after after the first few weeks, we were able to kind of just level set for a second and really prioritize what mattered for the company. And we can talk about that now or in a little while, just about how we then rolled out kind of what was important to us as a brand. Because the life hasn't stopped. We're all still wonderful people looking for community and connection. And how could Hatch be a source of that, even in a time of a pandemic?
Yeah, and all of you were very honest, and I keep saying honest, and it's so fitting about the difficult decisions, because it wasn't just about closures, it was about furloughs and layoffs, which is a very painful decision. As all of you are founders and mothers, I'm sure you feel almost a protective approach and feeling toward your employees. That all being said, whether you had to furlough, lay off, how did you express or exude leadership and compassion amid these difficult times? And before I toss the mic to Kate for this answer, I want to encourage all of those who are joining on the backstage or through Hopin. If you have any questions, start typing them in. The Mother Honestly team will be fielding those. And not just questions, but comments too. I just want to hear and know the unique perspectives and opinions and insights you all have when it comes to the topics that we move through. So that being said, Kate, could you let us know how you had to exude compassion during this really difficult time as leader?
Yeah, it was really I think we were all feeling confusion. And so I think one of the first things that I really tried to reflect is just complete transparency of what I thought to be true about the business based on the circumstances, what I was expecting. We did immediately go into cuts. It was really crazy for our employees, because we have been such a we had our best month in January. Had this amazing, profitable, top of the world January. We've always been revenue generating. We've never been a company that's had to stress about our runway. And within a day, we were stressed about our runway, and it was immediately about what could we cut, and asking employees, we're a small team. They are my family. I feel them like my family. And we looked at all of our OpEx and where we could cut, and that eventually came down to, how are we going to handle our workforce? And having that conversation with folks. We didn't cut any positions, but we did furlough. We did partial furloughs, and I cried in that conversation. I felt terrible. People have kids in college. They have mortgages. I myself have 3 kids and a mortgage. So I think just genuine empathy for the uncertainty that they felt that they were facing and still feel like they're facing, frankly.
Sorry. And Ariana, you let us know just what you had to go through. First, how many employees do you have? Because I know that your brand has seen a lot of growth in the past few years. So
yeah, we've been fortunate on a really good run. We had 52 employees prior to COVID, including retail staff. We had to make a tough decision, of course, to furlough the retail staff outside of a few store managers to kind of help us figure out the strategy there. And then we really made a decision long and hard with my senior team on how to preserve the most amount of jobs possible. And in order to do that, we issued a pay cut across, company-wide. And I feel I was pretty surprised and so grateful for the response from the team, that their gratitude for kind of the moves that we made to preserve these jobs, even though it impacted everybody individually. Again, we are a family as well. Regardless of how big we grow, I take pride in kind of always holding that firm that we care about each other first. And so the fact that people were willing to take a personal hit to enable everybody to continue to have their jobs was really important. We did make some layoffs in some areas of the business that were completely cut off. But again, as Kate said, having empathy and really thinking from a human level, things at the time like revenue and ROAS and all the metrics that we tend to, or at least in my world, we tend to measure on a daily basis, just take back seat to how are we doing as humans, as women, as mothers, as people. And it's been really amazing and rewarding to kind of put that first. It's always been a priority, but sometimes business just usually drives, just out of what we have to do to make investors happy and to actually pay the bills. The silver lining I'm hoping out of all of this is that we're more compassionate for one another and we really prioritize what matters.
Thank you, Ariane. And Jenny, why don't you let us know what happened with Push?
Yeah, absolutely. I heard something early on when this all went down that, we're all in this together. And the person speaking was saying, we are all in this together, but we're going through the storm together. We're not in the same type of ship. And so some people are going through with like a battleship and like nothing affects them, and then some people are in like a rowboat just trying to make it by. And so we have such different, ages, stages in life for our franchisees. We had, 60 employees at the time at our franchise office, and some are really young, just out of college, and some are, our VPs of major departments, and everybody was experiencing this differently. So we just tried to keep that in mind and just show compassion about, how we're all dealing with this. So, on the franchise side of things, we decided to defer royalties because we just felt like it was the right thing to do. I mean, obviously we could have used that money, but at the same time, we knew what they were going through because we are a location ourselves in the Detroit area. And so we knew we had to do that. It was the right thing to do. We had a system-wide video that we sent out. We really tried to reach out. We created like a 3-time-a-week call with our whole system just to touch base with everybody and just let them know that we were there from them. It was collaboration, just that we would do anything to help them out. And, really, we knew we'd be remembered, I would say, by how we reacted in this situation. And so, we just really made thoughtful decisions, and nothing came, easy. And nothing was a light decision. We really thought it through, and, it was tough. Those layoffs were tough. We did get to bring some back, with some of the loans out there, which was wonderful, but just really tough conversations and trying to have compassion for what everybody's going through and how different everyone's going through it.
Awesome, Jenny. So yeah, when I first asked the question about compassion, it just seems like such an abstract term, but after you all walk us through the steps you take, from Kate on transparency, Ariane on pay cuts, or Jenny, deferring royalties. I mean, that just makes it all compassion concrete. So those are great tips. As we continue, everyone, please add your questions as we continue this conversation, comments, perspectives, opinions. We want this to be as interactive as possible, and they're already coming in. So keep them coming. We'll get to them ASAP. So those were the immediate protecting survival mode, right? But now we had to, then you all as leaders had to shift to protecting your core, protecting your livelihood and thus your family. So tell us the extra steps of survival mode, phase 2 survival mode, protecting your core, safeguarding your businesses that you all worked beyond hard to build. Ariane, why don't you start?
Yeah, so Hatch was in fundraising mode prior to COVID hitting, which you could only imagine what it's like to ask for money during a pandemic. So I think our survival mode was just defined by saving cash. And so the first step we took, on top of some of the ways we were looking at the team and the first areas that we can save on just based on things being, wholesale being stopped, et cetera, were really budgets. And how do we look at the budget overarchingly and make significant cuts there where we can preserve cash and not spend, so strongly. So I think really a fiscal responsibility to the budget, knowing that our top line was going to take such a massive hit. So just to put in perspective, the way we were looking at it and the way that my colleagues, other founders of small businesses were kind of talking about this was a 2-year rewind. So basically look at the business future as if it was 2 years ago, and that should be kind of your high expectation. And that's super humbling and put us in a very vulnerable position because of all the hard work that we've all put in to grow our babies, our businesses, our brands. But it was sobering, and we really it took me a few days to put myself back in the hat of, okay, we're still going to get to the top of this thing. We're going to fight this forward and be everything that I dreamed this to be, but it's just going to take a little longer. And so let's rewind a little bit and get back to efficiency, get back to being lean, and get back to the hustle, and think through how we're going to do this in a maverick, more kind of organic way, like we started, and keep on rebuilding. And that was by cutting budgets across the board. So everybody took a hit, and we all came together and said, I can give back this, this, and this. And we were able to come to a plan that we showed investors that made sense for us, where we could kind of reset.
And Kate, how about you? Yeah, I mean, as I said, we immediately went into, we cut marketing, we cut, there was for us as a base business based in travel, there was no reason to be marketing anymore. We cut our agencies, all of it. And then I think we went through the cutting, and then there was a good period of getting the PPP loan that took a lot of time, energy, effort, very confusing process. And then it was really like, okay, what's next? What do we do now? Travel, we're in the position, we don't know when travel's coming back, if it's coming back, and we knew we had to kind of, what are the things what do we have that we can pivot elsewhere? We have a really strong group of enterprise clients, hundreds of enterprise clients. We can be a resource to them. We can partner with other companies to bring value to these enterprise companies and our employers. So we kind of redesigned our go-to-market for enterprise. We also have a strong brand with breastfeeding moms. We're often being asked to provide them with other products. Our purpose has always been to support moms on a mission, and we kind of took a broader look at that purpose and decided that maybe this is an opportunity for us to move into e-commerce to support mom-founded companies in an e-commerce platform. So we launched the Mother Shop, which is only innovative products made by moms, and supporting mom-run businesses through this time. We also give a portion of the sales back to supporting moms and babies in need. So we really leaned into our purpose there. The other thing that we have is we have an incredibly unique logistics platform. The way that we ship breast milk actually works pretty perfectly with clinical studies. So we started getting actually contacted by studies that are studying the relationship between breast milk and COVID, and we pivoted our business to support those studies. So we are now kind of in the breast milk research area as well. And that's actually been a really exciting new area for us to move into.
yeah, we want to definitely get into how each of you are going super digital as the whole world goes remote. Jenny, for you, I want to chisel this question because we have an incoming question from the audience. Jenny, as someone who was interested in swimming lessons, I'm curious how goldfish is going to change in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ever-changing world right now. I can't answer that. Definitely, I would say every state is right now we're dealing with it. We have several locations open and, they're all opening in a different way at this point because of local and state regulations. But, we're obviously going to take every precaution we can, whether it is social distancing, whether it is wearing masks, whether it is, teaching from a distance. We've honestly mapped out 100 different scenarios of how this could look, and we're prepared for anything. And I really do think that swim lessons can be taught in this world, and we have a lot of safe ideas that could make that happen. So we're constantly creating and brainstorming on that. But I would say that swim lessons will not go away. I think with drowning being the leading cause of death for children 1 to 4, it's a really scary thing to think about this not being available right now. And so we are doing our best to create anything that we can do to make swim lessons come back safely.
Thank you, Jenny. And Ariane, this is an audience question that might be best for you. So the viewer says, my small business has experienced a huge financial blow. What advice for pivoting can you share?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really depends. It really depends on kind of what product or service you're putting out there. But I would just focus on the way that you're most profitable, and really what the effort you put in can yield you the best, dollar on the other side, so you can continue to feed and invest in people and make your business thrive again. I think authenticity is a really big moment right now. So if there's a way to communicate and really rally your community around the support, I think really just reaching out and letting them know that that there's a person behind the company and that you are there and you can kind of bring them in, that will help just kind of build the momentum of getting back on track and hopefully supporting the growth and the rebuild of your business.
And this is a follow-up for you, Ariane. From another audience member, it's more so, I think it's something you can speak to. I am a new manager boss of a small company. I will have to lay off employees. Besides being compassionate, how can I help soften the blow? I feel sick to my stomach, she says.
Yeah, I mean, I've been feeling sick to my stomach for a few months now. I think we all do. It's just such a sad, tragic time, and feeling grateful for what we have is a good place to start. But also, how do we help when we do have to make tough decisions and alter people's lives? And I think what we can do is provide resources, right? And so there are a lot of government, there are links to some grants for other small businesses right now. I'm happy to share those outside of the PPP, some local grants for just us as the business owners, but then for our employees, just any way that they can get unemployment or any sort of support we can bring together. I think just Jenny, Kate, and I can probably put together a list alone of ways that we can support our employees if we're breaking news that we're laying them off or furloughing. I think in New York, at least where we're located, unemployment was actually combined with some furloughs was actually not so bad for people. So I was very pleased to see that there was some sort of kind of next chapter where people were going to be okay for the time being until we figured things out.
Amazing, Ariane. And Kate, Milk Stork is not just a delivery company. It's really speaking volumes about the rights of working moms. Next audience question for you is, I'd love to hear more about the breastfeeding research you're doing. So as you get all this research, while it's coinciding with the pandemic, how do you continue to pivot?
So we're not doing the research. We're supporting research institutions. So we kind of operate as the logistical back end. There's large studies that they have to do donor collections of COVID positive people, mothers who are breastfeeding across the country. There's studies that are studying kind of the immunity of babies who have been breastfeeding from a COVID positive mom. There are studies that are extracting antibodies from breast milk to see if there's a way of treating COVID. So those are the studies that we're supporting. And for these studies to actually have kind of a statistical integrity, they have to have so many donors across the US. So we help, it's essentially the same model that we use for shipping breast milk, except that we're doing donor collections now. We're not doing the research. That would be awesome. But yeah.
Okay, and Jenny, the next question's for you. And as we answer the next round of questions, please tell us your Instagram handle so that our viewers can follow your journey and what you're offering throughout the next few weeks. So Jenny, first tell us, how do we find Goldfish on Instagram? And can you talk more about how you're repositioning for growth? Summer's coming up. What are we all going to do right now without your schools?
Right. Yeah. Well, first of all, we're at Goldfish Swim School. You can find us on Instagram, goldfishswimschool.com as well on the web. But, you know, we're really trying to take a digital approach, which is interesting with swim lessons. But we've tried to be creative with coming up with some great ideas that can still spread our mission of keeping children safer in and around the water. That's what we've always been passionate about. And there's a way to do it on land as well. It doesn't look the same, but I think we're still really teaching these children about water safety. So we have something called Goldfish at Home, which is a YouTube series that we've created that I'm filming with my own kids in my living room. But, you know, it's really been just a fun way to teach kids at home about safety skills and remember, you know, your big arms and remember all of those things that you've been learning in lessons. We can teach them at home as reminders and muscle memory, and they can move their arms like they do in the pool, even though they're not. Talk about floating positions and safety skills. So we practice them in a fun way, and we have themes each week. And so check that out. It's on our Goldfish Swim School YouTube page. But we also have at-home activity creations, you know, that we've done, like scavenger hunts and crossword puzzles and, you know, just screen-free things that kids can do at home to talk about water safety, because it's just not enough of the conversation right now. And then we've also partnered with Ryan Murphy, who's an Olympic gold medalist. He does Recess with Ryan for us, and it's been just, you know, an inspiration for kids to hear an Olympian talking about water safety, and he shows them exercises they can do at home to stay healthy. And, you know, it's just, we're trying to be out there in front of the audience just to really make this a topic, because it is a real issue. We've done some Q&A on Instagram with you guys as well, Mother Honestly, and then also Nicole Hughes, who's just a mom who has dedicated her life to water safety after she lost her son tragically to drowning a few years ago. So we've done, you know, as many things as we can. We have a Facebook Live game tonight, a water safety trivia that you can check out, and just trying to keep it a topic of conversation and remind these parents and children how important it is to keep these skills up.
Awesome. Ariane, so this question's for you. This whole pandemic really highlighted inequalities, especially services, health services, and overall marketing to the new mom market. Of course, first of all, let's learn how to find Hatch on Instagram, but also, what is Hatch doing? Because it's a luxury brand, it's a high price point. How are you reaching moms of all backgrounds during this time?
Yeah, so Hatch can be found at HatchGal. That's our Instagram handle. And it's an excellent question, because Hatch, while we're perceived to be luxury, in truth, many of our contemporary competitors out in the marketplace, the price points are the same. And the beauty about our products is that you're not investing in things that you dispose of after the baby. So it's really the duality of being able to wear things after pregnancy, which hopefully, as wise women who are watching our wallets, appeals to lots of women who want to make smart choices with their dollars. And we've been able to, through this kind of thoughtfulness in the product that we're putting out there, we've been able to attract such an amazing, strong community. And over the last few years, especially through our retail locations where we've had these physical hubs, we've been able to bring in the community for lactation, to meet with lactation consultants, prenatal experts, and really kind of forge this physical community in our stores. Since that is no longer an option, or right for the time being, we have surfaced our community online, which I'm so proud of. And we just launched Babe by Hatch, which is our content platform, which really opens the conversation about the things that we're experiencing, regardless of demographic or household income. It's about us as mothers and women going through the same thing in our different skins and our different homes. And I'm really proud that that the conversation's universal, and we're all going through the same stuff just as humans trying to figure this out. And now we have kind of a platform to share those stories and let people know that they're not alone. So really content has been a big play for us. This was in the works prior to COVID, but it is kind of a lovely time to launch something that is really meaningful and unites women of all sorts onto one home base, and that's on Babe by Hatch.
Wonderful. So Kate, for you, we have a question from the audience, and I think you might be best to answer this. How can women who are feeling confident in running their companies right now, especially their company's financials, learn more? Like, how did you learn about your assets and cash flow and budgets? How did you get your, I guess, new mom economy MBA?
It's a good question, because I went to art school. I did not go to business school. But I did, early on, I did invest in having someone help me build the financial model and kind of go through that process with someone, because we do have a pretty complicated, with logistics, you have a lot of variable costs. Obviously, shipping from New York to San Francisco is different than Phoenix to Florida and all of that. So I really did need help to build that. So I think that's a worthwhile investment, even in these times. If you have, depending on what your business is, for us, if you have a complicated business, then invest in it. And then, I mean, honestly, it's a lot like running a household. You make this much, you spend this much. Can you go without, some of the more name brand things that you buy in your house? I mean, I really did use my mom skills of, we're looking at, with camps. It's a perfect example. If you can budget for camp, you can probably budget for running your business, and how you're going to make every dollar count and where it's best spent. It's very much the same as running a business, but you do need a framework to organize the expenses.
Awesome. And Jenny, for you, what did it take to go from one swim school to a national brand with physical locations? What was the one essential thing you needed?
Yeah, we went from our one corporate location that my husband and I ran to franchising. So some models, there's a lot of corporate locations, they get their systems down and then they franchise. We had some people interested in expanding with us, and we had to make a choice of how we wanted to expand. And for us, the one thing was just systemizing everything. And it's very tedious. We literally wrote down every single process we had to the ultimate detail, and we had advisors and we had a lot of help with that. But just honestly, I would say document, if you're thinking of expanding, document everything you do as best you can, and just make processes and procedures for everything you can think of, because it's so much easier to duplicate and be consistent that way when you have it written down. And that's been kind of like our Bible of, how we follow our processes across the country, because we can't be there every day. And this is our baby, and we want to make sure that it's consistent across the country, but that's hard when you're not there. And so just document as much as you can.
Okay, let's talk about the world of fundraising. Ariane, obviously, it's tough enough approaching Silicon Valley about growing a brand, a startup targeting the new mom market, right? I mean, Silicon Valley already alone, and the overall lending community, it's male dominated. So how do you get people, be it investors or other supporters, to rally behind your brand in order to feel and experience that growth? So I am a reporter, and I have a 2-year-old son, and I just remember coming back and becoming obsessed with how the startup economy is growing for the mom market. And we evaluated it at Forbes at about $46 billion, which is great. It sounds promising, right? But there's so much room for growth. We moms have a spending power of $2.4 trillion. So there is still a huge gap. Ariane, how do we continue to close that gap?
Yeah, it's a great question. So just to rewind, I bootstrapped Hatch for the first 6 years, basically building this brick by brick on my own through community and just kind of as much hustle as I could possibly put into it. At the time when I launched Hatch, there wasn't a digital ad strategy. Acquiring customers via, online, it really wasn't that big of a game. And when I went to fundraise as a new mom, and a CEO and all the other responsibilities I had, my favorite area of the business is not spreadsheets and P&Ls. And so I'm a creative visionary, and all of a sudden I was having to wear this hat of doing a song and dance in boardrooms constantly, which is a complete full-time job. And when I was pregnant with my second daughter, that's when when I was pregnant with Charlie, my first daughter, that's when I conceived of Hatch. 4 years later is when I started to think about raising money. And quite frankly, when I was out in the field speaking to people, I just got completely exhausted. I was 7 months pregnant. And I remember breaking down and just calling my mentor and saying, how do I do this? And she said to me, well, why don't you just take a break and have the baby and give yourself a break? And I did. I gave myself about 6 months to just have Georgie and enjoy the moment and continue on my track. And in that time, I had a chance to really reflect on why this was such a challenging process for me. And it was really because I didn't feel 100% confident in how I was pitching the numbers. It's just not it's not my A game. And I like to be on my A game all the time. But realizing where I needed help and where I could use some improvement was it humbled me, but it was a huge lesson for me. And I gained so much strength through that. And what I did was I brought someone on at that time, because I really realized I needed that help, who did know spreadsheets, who knew how to work the room, who knew numbers, because I was going into, rooms with men, and it wasn't necessarily something that maternity has always been a taboo category. People, Vogue and WWD, a lot of these publications wouldn't cover it because women's bodies were changing and it wasn't being celebrated. And it didn't matter to me because I knew women like myself needed someone to talk to them and say it was okay to be blossoming, to have a baby in your belly. What a beautiful moment. We can invest in ourselves. And so fortunately I kept going, but getting in that investing headspace, I needed help. And so for me, it was bringing on the help to make that kind of case stronger. And also I allowed enough time where I had proof of concept to go in. And a lot of the men that I was speaking to, or I have been speaking to, they had wives who were obsessed with the brand. So that really helped, the fact that they had kind of voices in their ears saying, oh my God, Hatch, I loved it. I love it now that I'm pregnant. So that really helped, just having some history and wisdom there. And the numbers growing year over year, because I didn't raise money out of the gate.
Yes, and I remember interviewing your investors. What is the name of the VC firm again? The two partners?
Silas Capital. They're amazing, and they're
I love seeing a lot. It's great to see the mom market grow, but I love seeing the fathers and husbands, many of whom still dominate these, this entire landscape. They're backing us. It's great, but there's still room for growth.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so for Kate, can you tell us about so it's basically, Milk Stork is, I'll put it this way. I remember when I got back from maternity leave, my son at the time was 6 months, and I had to go all the way to Boston for the Forbes Under 30 Summit. And because I was so busy, I remember getting mastitis and interviewing one of our under 30 stars and feeling like I was going to pass out. And I wasn't prepared for all this. So thank goodness for startups like yours, empowering breastfeeding moms and work. Sorry, I'm in New York, as you can tell, with all the humidity. And so thank goodness for startups like yours who are empowering working moms, traveling moms. But as we're all remote at the moment, what are your main concerns about the issues that us working at home are facing?
So, I think we made so much progress. One of the things that I'm most proud about with Milk Stork is that we really helped bring the conversation of breastfeeding in the workplace forward. Moms were traveling for work, and they were, where we have revenue essential people or employees, we have operationally essential employees, and they have to travel. And for moms, that was presenting a real pain point in their breastfeeding journey. A lot, I don't know about you, but I often got asked the question, well, why don't you just stop breastfeeding? Why don't you just stop pumping while you're on your trip, and then you can just do it when you come back? And I'm like, because my boobs will explode 3 times every 3 hours, and it will be embarrassing. It will be painful. You can get mastitis. I'll lose my milk supply. There's a bazillion reasons why that doesn't work. And so with Milk Stork, moms were able to really advocate for a from a business position of why it was important to have a lactation support service like Milkstork. If you want me to earn money for this company, if you want me to be a salesperson and close my quota, then you have to enable me to be on the road. And they were able to speak truth to power about breastfeeding. What the nice thing about breastfeeding right now and work from home is that moms are able to have babies on the breast. They're probably not pumping as much and engaging with a medical device that is freaky and difficult to use 3 times a day. But at the same time, I worry that the conversation has paused. I also worry that breastfeeding has become invisible again. And that even though these moms are at home, they are still breastfeeding 3 times a day. I don't know about you guys, but I'm on a Zoom call like 5 hours a day, and the pain point is still there. Breastfeeding has never been easy. It's not easy when you're working from home. It's not easy when you're working from home and have an older kid, and you have an 8-hour workday. So I'm hoping that this pause with work from home and homeschooling and all of these issues doesn't make this invisible, and we're able to resume the conversation. The one thing I will say, though, is that I think another silver lining of this whole thing is that we have seen working fatherhood in very clear detail over the past few weeks. And I hope that dads and partners, secondary caregivers, which is a terrible way of referring to another parent, but that they are getting the support that they deserve coming out of this now that their pain points are more visible as well. Tanya, I think you're muted.
Sorry, whoops. Before we wrap up, I would like to ask each of my panelists to just sign off with words of encouragement, words of advice to all our viewers, working moms at home, full-time moms at home, who might need it now more than ever. And, again, it has been an honor to track what I call the new mom economy. Like I said, our spending power, our household spending power is past close to $2.5 trillion. It can't be ignored. So thank goodness for founders like you who are on an entrepreneurial mission, which is a struggle. It is difficult to grow a business like yours, and you've all managed to do so successfully. So please give us your wisdom, as we all need it now more than ever. Jenny.
Yeah, I would just say, give yourself some grace. It's a tough time, and you're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. Don't be too hard on yourself. And if you are an entrepreneur, just think of ways that you can be creative for your business for now. I don't think this will last forever. I hope it won't. But if you're trying to open a business right now, obviously it's a tough time, but there's ways for everything. Don't give up. And if you really believe in your mission, then I would just keep going and try to find ways to pivot and be creative with it and just hang in there during this time.
Ariane, quick moment of inspiration for us.
Continue to have hope, and let's lean on each other. We're all going through this, and together we can provide just comfort and resources, and we will get through this. And the silver lining is that our children will also get through this, and there'll be some more humility down the pike for them that I'm really excited for.
And
I would just say, this is a difficult time, and it's these kinds of times where innovation is born. So there's never a great time to have kids, and yet we all had them, and there's never a perfect time to start a business. So you might as well just go for it, and follow that pain point and solve for it.
Just go for it, right? And thank goodness for women like you for sharing your wisdom.